Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so obviously there were some actions taken here by this administration to just discard this whole Epstein thing, Men in Black neuralizer style.
Their water, tap water.
All right, Beatrice. There was no alien.
The Epstein client list does not exist. Stop asking questions.
Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the stabbing?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration.
But unfortunately for them, and despite those efforts, the Jeffrey Epstein seed of curiosity continues to bloom, and now people are taking it to a whole other level as the main focus becomes his alleged connection to the CIA and other intelligence agencies like Mossad. We've got independent journalists making the argument that Epstein was CIA dating back to the start of his career in the 1980s. And so that obviously opens up a whole freaking can of worms here. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the muck and mire, shall we? Where the worms do reside. Let's take a look at what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Okay, so the claim continues to be that Jeffrey Epstein has two major intelligence community links, and these are the claims that keep resurfacing in this whole Epstein saga.
I think that the FBI is doing all they can. I believe that Cash and Dan have been honest about what they've seen. This new development this week from the Justice Department really is much more final than coming from the FBI, because the Justice Department would be the keeper of all the interagency traffic. I believe that the Jeffrey Epstein story is much more of a CIA story than an FBI one. The fact is it's almost impossible that the CIA would not have been keeping tabs on Jeffrey Epstein since at least 1983, when Jeffrey Epstein was the money fixer for the CIA's main point person in the Iran-Contra scandal. One of the things that's frustrated me, and I think millions of people in the country and maybe even around the world, is that this unsettled question about Alex Acosta's apparent statement that Jeffrey Epstein belonged to intelligence and was told to back off, followed by a statements at a public press conference that did not deny that he said that, and then a very, very tepid, shallow DOJ ethics investigation after that, which effectively did not ask him the question point blank, has left a gaping hole in the story here.
We spoke to Ari Ben Mashani, who is a former Israeli spy. He said on the record unequivocally that Jeffrey Epstein was working for Israeli intelligence operations, the Mossad, and running a classic honey trap operation. That is, lure people inside, record their activities and learn about their peccadillos and use it to blackmail them.
So the claim is that Epstein was recruited by the CIA back in the 1980s. This could possibly explain the arrest in 2001 in Florida, where Jeffrey Epstein gets picked up and supposedly or reportedly says that he's CIA, then magically the entire case pretty much seemed to disappear for decades. And so the major claim here is that Epstein might have actually been an intelligence asset, a middleman for information, leverage, and probably most importantly blackmail. The major claim that he was helping run a honey trap operation to blackmail high-value targets. And that's where things start to get real messy real quick in terms of the government just openly releasing documents. Because if that's true, well, the scandal isn't just everything of the Epstein nature already. Crimes that are so bad, I don't even want to say them on a YouTube video. It's not just the human trafficking, let's call it. It's the possibility now, the potential, that the operation that Epstein was running was potentially some shadowy state operation, this blackmail machine that was designed to compromise politicians or businessmen. And so now, in an effort to quell the conversation, to hope that people just drop the Epstein thing and move on to the next focus, well, this sort of, I guess, next step speculation has now completely taken foot. Maybe this is what they're trying to cover up. Maybe this is why they dropped that DOJ memo in the dead of night on Sunday, claiming there's no Epstein client list. They just want it to go away. Don't ask any questions, and actually, the next strategy seems to be find a scapegoat. The problem isn't the lack of transparency or the miscommunication across the board. No, the problem is Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi must resign now.
I got a comment on what's happening in Washington with Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi. A direct plea to President Trump. Please, President Trump, I know you're not involved at this level. I know that you are busy working on huge, huge projects, but America can't lose Dan Bongino. He has so much credibility. Everybody knows him, loves him. Pam Bondi has created so much doubt and chaos in this whole thing. There's no reason for all of this. You know, either it's a massive cover-up or she's just fouled this up every single time. Please, let's not lose Dan Bongino. If there's a choice, I hope not, but please, fire Pam Bondi. Keep Dan Bongino, please.
There's this big push all of a sudden that Pam Bondi's got to go and Bongino's got to be the one to take over. But are we really falling for this? Now, I'm not saying this to defend Pam Bondi. I'm not exactly satisfied with her work either. But the idea that there needs to be this hyperfixation on her and her resignation, it seems like the whole play here is to throw Pam Bondi under the bus and then dust off your hands as if, poof, that makes the whole Epstein thing go away. But it obviously doesn't, and this idea that Pam Bondi's creating all the chaos and confusion here, and Bongino's been absolutely perfect, I'd say that's a little bit of a stretch, considering at one point he was saying this.
A year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but, well, the short story, but not who they are. It says, you know, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset. His plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right, swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. How do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right?
It started off with Bongino saying that, to then joining the cabinet and basically falling in line with what you would suspect as the approved narrative.
There is more coming on the Epstein files. My comments were clear. I'm not paid for my opinions anymore. I work for the taxpayer now. I'm paid on evidence. That's it. The evidence we have in our files clearly indicates that it was, in fact, we do have video. It's not the greatest video in the world. However, the video does show in that specific block that he goes in, made a phone call. You'll see 12 hours of guards going to basically check on him, come back. You'll see no one really comes out in that bay, in that area, than him. There's no one in there. When you combine that with the other evidence where we will be releasing in the coming weeks, I think it's pretty clear. However, as I've clearly indicated, you know, listen, investigations, if new information surfaces in the future on any of these cases, we're always open. I'm just telling you, there's nothing there in the file at all that indicates anything other than, in fact, the suicide.
I mean, honestly, it's almost as if Dan Bongino saw a Washington ghost, and he's never been the same since. But again, not to rag on Dan Bongino either, because all their actions could possibly be explained, maybe through plausible ignorance, whatever it is. I'm not here to condemn anybody, but what I am looking for are answers, and the idea that Pam Bondi needs to go and that gives us the answers, that's ridiculous. No, I think pretty much everybody here at the helm needs to be answering questions. I think Megyn Kelly's got it right.
I'm a supporter of the president, but this is not going well. And they need a shift in strategy. And I really think what needs to happen is I volunteer to do it because I am not conspiratorial, but I totally understand the Epstein case very well and why people have questions about it. I'll sit down with all three of them. Give me Bondi, Patel, and Bongino for 2 hours. I can ask anything, and then the audience can see whether they're truth tellers. And I care about them. I don't know Pam as well, but though I know Pam, I don't dislike Pam. I really don't. We go back years at Fox News. Dan is the only one who I consider an actual personal friend, but the audience knows that. This is why you have to sort of keep some distance between yourself and the administration, even when they're your friends. You have to be able to report honestly on them and to call out bullshit when you think you smell it. I think I smell it, and I'm nowhere near dog poop playground, so I think it's coming from Washington, D.C.
We need all three of them, that's Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi, not to immediately be fired and resign in disgrace, but all of them to take serious, hard-hitting questions, preferably from independent journalists, not connected to any big networks or big governments, and probably a congressional hearing as well. Because honestly, it looks like we may be dealing with something that is far deeper than what was initially publicly suspected. Anyways, that's pretty much it. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.